Hey guys, Lancer here. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks again for joining me while we're looking to do Timmy's understand supply and demand. Let's find out. So, one of the main things that I wanted to cover in this is supply and demand is meant to be very simple. Pretty much, if someone is going to have less of something and you want to buy it, they're going to charge you more for it. But I wanted to start off with what are the stages of a bubble? Because Rudy just did a video where he talked about the fact that over the long term, reserve list prices go up and box prices go up at a faster rate, especially since they're usually 10 times the reserve list or whatever cards are in the box itself, the estimated value of it. If that's the case, then everyone probably should just go and mortgage their house, borrow a ton of money, and go ahead and buy these cards because, by the sounds of it, you cannot go wrong. And in some ways, I agree with him, mainly because that's kind of how things have been going. I actually don't think, and from Rudy's point of view, I don't think he's got any financial issues from his side. I know that he's had some bankruptcy possibilities in the past, but that doesn't mean that he's the kind of guy that's like, been bankrupt and like, come back a couple of times or anything like that. So he's still smart with his money. So I actually think that he's right. But I want us to be able to see if we can identify a bubble before it happens. A lot of people are saying the reserve list cards will never come down in price. They have now found a new plateau, and if even if they do drop, they're not going to drop by much at all, if any. And after a certain amount of time, they will pick back up and go up again. So it is now almost never a bad time to invest in reserve list cards. That's okay, but I wanted to get the idea of, is this a majority thinking or is this a minority thinking? Because that really does change the way how people invest. If the majority of people are thinking that exact same way, eh, I'm not up for that. But if it's not that many people that are going, hey, yeah, buy reserve list cards, and trust me, in the next 10, 20 years, that is going to do a lot better than almost any other investment or asset prices. Then if that's the minority, then I'll be like, okay, sure. That means that there's still more people that want to get into the market in the future. And since it's a minority, there's less chance of like supply and demand mess ups. Right now, it feels a bit more like the majority, but you guys can let me know about that. Let's have a look at bubbles. So, one of the most important things with the bubble is they're almost impossible to tell when you're in one, mainly because you don't know where the top is. All you can do is go, oh my God, the prices are so high, and you haven't figured out how to make or get away from it at the top. So, there's a chance that you might sell or other people that are willing to sell, because I know that a lot of people that watch my show right now, they pretty much do not want to sell their cards. And that makes perfect sense because if you did not borrow money, you did not do this for profit, then why would you sell it? You're pretty much just buying and playing the game with these cards, protecting them well enough because you know that they paid money for them and you know they can appreciate, but you're not planning to sell anyways. You didn't borrow money against this. But normally, what happens in bubble is that people get greedy, and then the fear comes in after when people start realizing that they're not selling at the price they could, and then everyone starts undercutting each other, and things get really bad. And someone has to liquidate their portfolio because the banks are calling in at their house. So let's find out what the biggest steps are. So there have been plenty of bubbles in the past. Let's find out what the five stages are. So first stage, displacement. A displacement occurs when investors get enamored by a new paradigm, such as an innovative new technology or interest rates that are historically low. What's going on right now, actually? Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Interest rates were historically low. If I can go back a long time, a very long time. This is months, by the way, guys. It goes back from 20. So this is 2021. This is what happened in 2021. And this is what they were doing for most of its history. So they dropped again and now it's bouncing back. This bounce back is actually quite terrifying. With the amount of loans everyone's got, the amount of debt the entire world is in. Yeah, that's scary. But let's get back to it. So, interest rates that are historically low or innovative new technology, people get enamored by it and go, oh my God, this is you can't fail. A classic example of displacement is the decline of the federal funds rates from 6.5 in July 2000 to 1.2% in June 2003. Over this 3-year period, the interest rate on 30-year fixed rate mortgage fell by 2.5 percentage points to a historically low 5.23. It is even cheaper than that, guys. If you want to buy a house, I mean, it's a bit late now because the house prices kept going up. But a couple of months ago, and even now, maybe even now, because I told you, when interest rates get really low, money becomes, assets become infinite price, money supply, as long as there's money. But yeah, historically low, 5.23%, sowing the seeds of a subsequent housing bubble. The boom price rise slowly at first, following a displacement, and then gain momentum as more and more participants entered the market, setting the stage for the boom phase. Oh man, the boom phase is amazing. Feels really good to be part of that. I know, I got a house as well. Great. The government just comes in and goes, yeah, interest rates are low. Central banks just go up. That's fine. We're going to make sure that you guys can borrow money forever. During this phase, the assets in questions attract widespread media coverage. It's getting there. There's a reason why channels, I didn't want to be a channel that talked about just reserve list cards, but there's a reason why they get interest. It's because they're moving up in price. I hope you guys stick with me while I talk about other things, but no one seems to really want too much of the other things as much as the reserve list stuff. So, during this phase, people talk about it. Fear of missing out could be a once in a lifetime buying opportunity, guys. There's more speculation, drawing an increased number of investors and traders into the fold. That's the truth right there. It's not the people that just play the game, it's not just the people that invest, it's also the people that trade. Euphoria. During this phase, caution is thrown to the wind and asset price skyrockets. Valuation reaches extreme levels during this phase as new valuation measures and metrics are touted to justify the relentless rise. They can never fall down, and the greater fool theory is brought in. The idea that no matter how prices go, there'll always be a market of buyers willing to pay more plays out everywhere. For example, at the peak of the Japanese real estate bubble in 1989, land in Tokyo sold for as much as 139,000 per square foot, or more than 350 times the value of Manhattan property. That is insane. Similar at the heights of the internet bubble in March 2000, the combined value of all technology stocks on the Nasdaq were higher than GDP of most nations. Insane. Insane. The next step is the one that we have not seen, and I don't know if we ever will. Me thinking that is already a bit off, but a lot of people are just backing up my claims that they're not going to sell. Prices aren't going to come down. So if you want to get in when you can. Profit taking. In this phase, the smart money, heeding the warning signs of the bubble is about to burst, start selling positions and taking profits. But estimating the exact time of the bubble is when the bubble is due to collapse can be difficult. Exceedingly difficult. In fact, this has bankrupted more people than probably just sitting in the bubble. So, you got other things going on. But if you borrowed money, that's when trouble comes. If you borrowed money to buy magic cards, if you borrowed money to buy reserve list cards, and you're hoping to be able to sell them back at a higher profit and pay off the bank and then maybe buy a house or something that you always wanted, this is when things can get tricky. I don't know how many people are doing that, and no one in my comment section seems to be doing that. Good for you guys. But I'm just letting you know that that's usually something that happens when people start making money in any market. The next step is the one that's the scariest, and I don't know if we've hit that yet. The interest rates is an interesting one. Panic. It only takes a relatively minor event to prick a bubble. Once it's pricked, the bubble cannot inflate again. Not really true. It just takes a long time because there's a lot of fear. There's pretty much a new generation has to come in to reinflate the bubble, or a new paradigm has to shift, which is interest rates go to negative. Pretty much the banks are giving you free money. In the panic, asset prices reverse course and descend rapidly as they ascend. Investors and speculators faced with margin calls. We don't have margin calls. Pretty much, if you borrowed money, then the banks might come after you. Faced with margin calls and plunging value of their holdings, now want to liquidate at any price. As supply overwhelms demand, asset prices slide sharply. One of the most vivid examples of the global panic in financial markets occurred in October 2008, weeks after Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy, and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and AIG almost collapsed. By the way, it's a scary movie, But The Big Short is amazing. And I recommend anyone that's interested in financial markets to have a look at it and just find out who Michael Burry is and just find out some of these big names. They are really good. Michael Burry is the best one. He is really switched on, and he is switched on even to this date. I still follow him because he calls them as it is. Amazing. And right now, he's thinking we're going to get hyperinflation. So if he's thinking hyperinflation, being out of cash is not a bad idea. Yeah, let's see how he plays out. That depends on what the Federal Reserve's response to everything is. But, if they're willing to print money, then hyperinflation, that's a new paradigm shift, and magic cards will, reserve list cards especially, will continue to increase in price. But so will almost everything that we buy. That's unfortunate. The S&P 500 plunged by almost 70% that month, its ninth worst monthly performance. That's not that impressive. In that single month, global equity markets lost a staggering 9.3 trillion, of 22% of their combined market capitalization. We're a lot larger than that. And yes, of course, there is the tulip mania, and they give us an example. But that's all well and good. I think when it comes to markets, what is interesting is there is so much at play that a lot of people don't think about. There's sections of the market that can take off, but I have never seen anything like what's happening right now, where everything seems to have taken off at the same time. I will remind you that if I went back to around about March 2020 for the S&P 500, March 2020, yep. Ever since then, we've just been shooting to the moon. And the funny thing is, oops, the reserve list, March 2020, when everyone said, oh no, what's going to happen? It dropped by, what, less than 3% from what it was before. So I will admit that the reserve list is like housing. Or, sorry, magic cards and everything like that are like housing. They're very, very slow to react because they're way harder to liquidate. So it's one of those things which is actually a bit slower and probably easier to keep tabs on, which is why I'm amazed by moves like this. This is what amazed me, because when you look at what the impact was for revised edition, when everything went down 30% on the market around the world, they didn't do anything. But then, for some reason, in the last month and a bit, they went up by almost 100%. So obviously something changed in the paradigm. So I would be very careful with all of this, but at the same time, you guys can let me know what your plans are for the future for the revised edition reserve list in general. Because my plan is once a month, I'll put aside just a little bit of money and see if there's anything I want to buy. If it's out of my reach, then I'll just wait until next month. If it's not out of my reach, then I'll get it. But I usually try to put some effort and time into figuring out what I want. And that's why I slowly build up my collection. But I'm glad that I got in around about July 2020 last year, because I did get a bulk of what I wanted back then. A lot of the stuff I want now is mostly just icing on the cake, other than the tiger. I want that tiger. So, as you can see, nothing really crazy is happening with the reserve list right now. I have noticed that on TCG there was a pretty decent priced plateau, I think. If I can find it again, all of my, yeah. So I saw a moderately played for around about $295, which actually is still pretty expensive. Yeah, that's still pretty expensive, but at the same time, after all these price changes that we've been seeing, it doesn't feel as broken as what it was before. So we'll have to see how that goes. Anyways, guys, I know that I'm just drilling on about more financial stuff, but I feel like all of this is quite interesting, and I don't know if you guys find the same value. But let me know what you think, and please comment below if you think the reserve list is one of those places where it is a very safe bet right now to, you know, keep some aside, like maybe 10% of your portfolio in reserve list, even now with its growth. Or if you're willing to wait a couple more months and see what happens and see if it does drop in price so that you can pick up some good card. And if so, you don't have to comment which cards, but if you want to let me know what cards, then at least we can keep an eye on it together. Thanks again and have a good one. See ya.